this evening is shipping and logistics, which is, of course, how consumers like me and every one of you get the things that we cannot live without. In essence, this industry links Filipinos with the rest of the world. As history reminds us, the Philippines was on a global trading route. The Manila-Acapulco trade linked east and west. Over time, though, other countries have surpassed the Philippines. And in recent years, domestic and external factors have challenged virtually every sector of the economy, but in particular, shipping and industry. To share with us the latest from this sector, we have invited Patrick Ronas, who has been involved in the shipping industry for several decades and has been at the helm of several companies in this field. He is currently President and CEO of Mstar Ship Agencies Incorporated, Container Bridge Philippines Incorporated, and the Association of International Shipping Lines. The association fosters closer interaction between international shipping companies and the Philippine government. As the association president, Mr. Ronas has laid the groundwork for the understanding of the industry of international shipping with private enterprises and the government. We will ask Mr. Ronas, how can the Philippines reclaim its status as a premier trading hub in Asia? Mr. Patrick Ronas, thank you for making time for Business Month. It's good to see you again, the first time since the pandemic. No?
My pleasure, Link. It's good to be here again. It's been some time.
Yes, I think it's been 3 years since we had you over for an interview at the Manila Times.
Right.
So many things have happened.
Right.
Before we get into it, maybe we should ask you, how is your industry doing? Maybe just barely a few years now after the pandemic, and just a little bit over a year into a new government. How's your sector?
Well, to put it this way, Klink, all of us were actually affected by the pandemic at
Sure.
that time. Volumes really dropped. We closed everything down. We were one of those essential people that can go out, do our stuff, because shipping will not stop. I mean,
Yes.
ships will not stop. They will continue to call. The cargo that we carry is considered essential, so it needs to move. So we were there where people were all locked up in their houses, being safe. Shipping industry, the terminal operators, your truckers, or those in the logistics sector were actually out there, boots on the ground, making sure that this cargo will move, or containers will move and gets delivered.
Oh, you're saying everything
places.
You said everything was shut down, but you guys couldn't shut down because
we cannot.
you had to ship in the food, the goods,
correct,
the PPE,
yes,
right?
We had to do all that, and at that time business was really very much affected. So we were before the pandemic hit in 2019, the volumes are very strong. The volumes are very good when you compare it to the previous years prior to the pandemic. So as we go along, 2020 happened. It was really a bad year for shipping. 2021 came. So all we wanted was, we hoped that the volume would go back to pre-pandemic levels, which is 2019. But in 2022, surprisingly, by mid-September, we hit the 2019 volumes, and all the way we coasted by. But as of the moment, because of what's happening around the world, we didn't see that the war in Ukraine and Russia would really affect us. But the next couple of months, it showed a bit. As the global economy got affected, inflation shot up through the roof. Fuel costs rose, food prices also went up. So right now we're seeing a very marginal increase in volumes when compared to last year's, which is unprecedented. Usually we get a 5% increase in volume year on year. So this time it's really very slow.
So would you say marginal? It's less than the typical growth that you see? Okay.
Right now I think first half there was only a 1%, 1.15% increment in our imports, and our imports is a good signal about how the economy is doing, considering that not only do we import finished products, also food, construction materials. We also import our raw materials for our exporters. So we see exports, at least the commodities that are being carried by ships, to be less than last year's by about 5%.
Right.
So which means the other countries are not really buying that much. So I don't know if there's if they're oversupplied or if the warehouses are full. But that's a general situation. The volumes has not gone up, but it has grown.
Okay.
Definitely, it
But
has
not
grown.
as much as
But not as much as we
you'd
expected
expect,
it.
yeah. So do you think from the Philippine perspective there is a problem with demand, that the growth is small, she said marginal because demand is soft, or is it more of the supply side that where we're having? Because you mentioned Ukraine. I've been hearing in other industries that they cannot make their goods because the parts or the raw materials are not getting to them, or if it's getting to them, it's very expensive, right? Or is it a combination of both supply and demand?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
Okay.
Take for example, sure, we don't trade much with Ukraine.
Okay.
But then Ukraine exports a lot of grain. If you stop the supply of grain from Ukraine, then what will they do? They'll buy into other markets where we buy.
I see.
And it's it's supply and demand.
Right.
In anything, there's always supply and demand. It comes into play all the time.
Right.
So same as what's happening with rice. India stops
exporting rice, yeah.
So the buyers from India, where do they? We don't buy from India much, no?
Right.
I mean, very little. But
those who buy where we buy from, they will buy more.
They'll buy from them.
Yeah,
so I was reading the papers this morning, and I see some people saying that the price of rice will go up by something like certain percentage points because of that. So that's the way it goes usually. We don't think it will affect us, but then eventually it hits us really.
Right. Indirectly.
Indirectly. Indirectly.
So what about the government? They're a little over a year now into office. Has that created some optimism in the shipping and logistics industry? Is it more of the same from the Duterte government, or what's the situation now?
Okay, one thing that I can personally, what I can see, the president has been doing some travels all around. It's very much welcome. You have a president who's a salesman.
Okay.
I was in sales before, so you really have to see a person for you to start trade. So, and I think he has done that. He's successful. We've got promises of investments all around.
Okay.
But I think we have to tread carefully with our relationship with China.
Okay.
Again, I'm not an expert in geopolitics, but you see the reason why.
You see it on your bottom line.
Yeah, of course. And put it this way, most of the products that we import, I think about 70% of them would come from China.
Okay.
Our raw materials, some of the food that we eat.
Yeah.
Even the potato chips, U.S. brand, you check on them, it's made in China. So that's the way it goes. So we import a lot from China. They're the manufacturing giant. They do that all over. So I think we have to tread carefully as far as that is concerned.
Yeah.
And we have to just make sure that a good thing about it is that the ports are ready. The ports are open. We didn't have the same congestion as what happened during the time of the pandemic when all ports were closed.
Right.
And then when they open up, when China opens up, they work really fast.
Right.
So then you have all these ships racing to get to Manila.
Right.
So when they get to Manila or when they get to other ports, karera yan di ba?
Yeah.
First one who comes in needs to be served, but meanwhile the others are waiting.
Right.
We had ships waiting outside for something like 12, 15 days at one time, and you can just imagine the cost.
Right.
The cost of having these ships wait.
Right. And typically, how fast is that turnaround before the pandemic?
Oh, it was fast. Maybe you'd wait for maybe about 3-4 hours, and you get to berth, and your operations would start. Maybe about mahaba na yung a day, and and when that happens, there's usually some other factor like the weather. The weather, or you had a long holiday.
And I think I remember you were talking before when we had that interview in the Manila Times. It costs thousands, not just fuel alone is expensive.
Of course.
And of course the manpower, the time, the opportunity cost.
Of course. Just to charter, some of the ships are basically chartered. The shipping lines, they don't own the ships. They charter it from somebody else. Parang
Right.
There's a company, he invests in ships, but he
Yeah.
doesn't run the
They
service.
don't manage it,
He
yeah.
just gives it to you, and
Yeah.
you pay him a daily rental.
Yeah.
So usually at that time, pre-pandemic, a 2,000 TEU ship maybe would have cost you something like maybe $5,500, $6,000 a day
Right.
to charter.
Right.
During the pandemic, it went up to something like $20,000.
Yeah.
$22,000
Yeah.
a day. So, ganun eh.
Yeah. So, I'm going to ask you a stupid question, and
Sure.
I mean, for the viewers who are not familiar with the business, why should they care?
Well, okay.
Do they care because those costs are passed on to the goods that they eventually buy, the end consumer? Is that
Yeah.
is that it, or something else?
Ganyan that, clinker. A space on a vessel is like a commodity.
Yeah.
So it plays. If it's short, it's a supply and demand.
Okay.
Ganun din. In any commodity, it's a commodity.
Right.
So what happens is that if there are not enough ships in the market or not enough ships to carry the cargo,
Okay.
ang nangyayari yan, people fight for space
Okay.
on that ship.
Okay.
So then there's a tendency na tataas yung presyo talaga. But
Okay,
when it's
inflation,
open,
yeah.
inflation, like right now, freight rates are falling because there's a lot of space. There's not much cargo moving. So maluwag na siya. Now, one thing about container shipping is revolutionary. It's like your ChatGPT. And when it came around, it revolutionized trade. Like a container vessel can carry multiple types of commodities and of smaller quantities. Because prior to that, you had to actually charter a whole ship just to carry your cargo, and that's where the problem is. Where do you get enough ships to carry that much cargo on a regular basis? Wherein if it's containerized, it's unitized, and it moves around. So right now, what do they say? They usually say 90% of what you see around you has been carried on the ship.
Right.
How was it carried on a ship to get here? So that's 90% of everything. The raw materials, maybe it's made in the Philippines. The chair that you're sitting on was made in the Philippines. But
even in
I'm
the
sure the materials.
But even in the Philippines, we're an island, so
Correct.
they may come from
you have to
Mindanao or Visayas.
Yeah, you have to move it around.
Yeah.
So that's how important it is. So anybody in their house right now, if they will take a look around and they'll say, no, this is not Philippine made. I mean, it has to be. It
has
was
to come
moved
from
by
somewhere.
a ship. It has come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Diba? So ganun yun. So that's how important it is. And right now, as you see, people keep talking about the last mile, last mile, diba? Last mile delivery, last mile here. The last mile is important because it gets to your place. But hold on, sino ba yung first mile? Who brought
that's you
that
guys.
thing to the last mile? Kami yun.
Yeah. So from the factory.
Yeah, from the factory.
From the factory to the port.
Pumasok sa pier ng Pilipinas yan.
Yeah.
Hinandle ng mga kasama natin sa terminal. Binabayan, dineliver ng mga truck driver or truck operators. And they clear ng customs. So, the supply chain is alive. There are a lot of players in the supply chain or in the logistics chain that has to function perfectly.
Right. Now, we have to take a quick break, but before we go, I was wondering if I can just ask one quick question. So, with all of these things, are you optimistic, not optimistic about the next 6 months and maybe even 2024?
I think I'll say I'm an optimist, Klink. So
Okay.
I'd always say I always think positive. Sabi nga nung boss ko dati, an optimist is a misinformed pessimist. But nevertheless, okay, we're hitting the bear months.
Okay.
After August,
So
we hit the
we're
bear
on
months. And that's usually the peak
Yeah.
season. Volumes are usually on a sine wave. So it's go low and then goes high. But usually, you go hit the bear months and you never can stop Christmas, regardless. Diba?
Especially in the
Whatever
Philippines.
happens. Especially in the Philippines. It starts next month.